In this exciting episode, Paul doesn't have to bother with ingratiating himself with Perry's client. He's already on kissing terms. And Della, she's getting roses, champagne, and perfume from a secret admirer. Somebody call the tabloids. It's the 7th Perry Mason made-for-TV movie, The Case of the Scandalous Scoundrel. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose here is pretty simple: provide an audio companion to the greatest legal drama in television history, Perry Mason. I plan to do a pod for every episode of the television series, and in episodes like this one, I'll take a look at some of those made-for-TV movies too. Each episode, I give a brief refresher of the plot, list some key pieces of trivia, and tackle the episode or movie's main theme. Then I feature a Perry proverb, a moment of wisdom from the man himself, and finish with a post-case water cooler where, just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can rehash the ins and outs of their adventures. But first, to the law library. Each episode in the Law Library, we return to prior cases to refresh our memories about Perry's past so we can find fresh precedents for future cases. We've had occasion to discuss libel in the Law Library, but I don't think we've ever seen Perry take honest-to-goodness civil action against someone quite like he does in this case.
What is this?
It's a summons and complaint for libel. Compliments of Senator Langley.
Oh, I was afraid we laid it on a little thick for that Langley feature. Wouldn't you know the lawyer on this is Perry Mason? Mason?
That's right. Perry goes after the confidential informer editor Harlan Wade, which incurs Wade's wrath. It doesn't seem like Perry will have a tough time proving his case. Wade is a total schnook, though we don't hear anything about the senator after Wade's murder. One thing my research did turn up: while in most of the United States you can only defame the living, in 7 states it is illegal to defame the dead: Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Nevada, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Utah. Alas, Colorado doesn't make the list, so no one's going to come after the characters of the Scandalous Scoundrel when they rake the deceased Harlan Wade over the coals. Speaking of which, let's get to the plot of this movie. The Case of the Scandalous Scoundrel. Well, Michelle Benty works for the confidential informer. She wants to investigate cases that matter. Her editor, Harlan Wade, on the other hand, wants her to print sleaze first.
Harlan, when I came here, you promised...
I know what I promised. Now stand by it.
Then why haven't you answered my memos? I've sent you at least 5 on that chain of nursing homes.
You get me what I want, and I'll give you what you want. You have my word, Michelle.
We know Benty's a good egg because she's got Paul Drake Jr. as an admirer. One afternoon with Paul, and Michelle's got a new lease on life.
Who am I kidding?
Not me. How about you?
I wish I could. Why did you have to show up anyway? Did I advertise for a conscience?
Does this mean that I have to pay for lunch?
Harlan isn't having it, though.
I was wrong about her, Frank. Very wrong. I want her out of here today.
Perry and Della aren't eager to go to a dinner party hosted by Wade, and when they do go, they're surrounded by people who hate the confidential informer editor. Here's a funny scene where Wade tries to pressure Perry.
Mr. Wade, I'm not going to discuss the lawsuit.
I think you'll recall dates and places. You and Miss Street.
Very inventive.
I can get bellmen, maids, hotel staff, others who will swear to occasions when you and Miss Street stayed together at the same hotel.
The mind reels at what the confidential informers actually said Perry and Della did in the hotel. Who knows? Well, Michelle Benty's so furious at being fired by Wade, she goes to his house to confront him, and when Wade winds up dead in his pool, Benty gets arrested. There's a Paul Drake Jr. plotline that has him tracking down a file-stealing criminal named The Animal and chasing people while music like this plays in the background. I just love those Paul Drake Jr. themes. And then there's a Della plotline that involves her getting gifts of various kinds from a secret admirer.
Yes.
Miss Street, these are for you. Where would you like me to set them?
Oh, right over there.
Where are they from?
They're from the hotel.
Would you like it poured now, or shall we let it chill for a few minutes more?
I'm so sorry. We didn't order that. It must be some mistake.
It was ordered for you, Miss Street.
But by whom?
Excuse me, this just arrived for you.
For me?
Oh, that won't be necessary. The tip's been taken care of. Thanks.
Well, open it. Perfume?
$400 worth.
As for the murder mystery itself, we've got 4 suspects. There's Dr. Clayman, a doctor with a secret history.
But you did have something much more damaging to hide.
What are you talking about?
A young doctor, much older and very rich wife suddenly and mysteriously dies. Self-administered overdose of insulin.
There's Clayman's wife, who also has a secret she just might kill to hide.
Isn't it true you never divorced? And you knew you weren't divorced when you married Dr. Clayman?
No!
Mrs. Clayman, isn't it true that Harlan Wade discovered all of this and threatened to publish his discoveries, thus making your marriage to Dr. Clayman a nullity, depriving you of support and community property?
There's Oscar Ortega, a financier who had Wade over a barrel.
He had thousands of promissory notes floating around town. I bought them all up at a premium.
So if he printed any scandal about you, you could have thrown him right into bankruptcy.
You got it.
And then there's General Sorensen, a Vietnam War hero who had to defend himself against rumors of wrongdoing.
Isn't it true you were about to be appointed to the board of directors of the South Wing Corporation?
How'd you find out about that?
What's important is Wade found out about it. And a scandal involving you that went all the way back to Vietnam.
But it's not Sorensen who actually commits the murder. It's Sorensen's former aide-de-camp, James Rivers, and he explains his motivation this way.
I did it. I didn't mean to. But, sir, I don't regret it. And yes, I waited for Wade that night in his house until after the party, because I was determined to get him off the general's back.
Victory for Perry and his client. I don't have to tell you who Della's secret admirer is, do I?
I know who sent me the flowers, the champagne, and the perfume.
Who?
You.
Now, let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. A Della is something about a particular character in the story. And a Perry is something we learn about our main character. Our Paul for this episode involves the central sleaze stories proffered by Harlan Wade. By the way, a fun detail when Paul Drake Jr. says that his mom reads The Informer.
Wait till my mother sees this.
Don't tell me your mother reads the Confidential Informer.
Are you kidding me? She wouldn't miss it.
This doesn't bother you?
Not if it doesn't bother Paul's mother.
With actor William Katz's real mother, Barbara Hale, sitting there and hamming it up. Gotta love it. Okay, so the confidential informer's main stories. Let's get this straight. We've got a doctor who might have killed a client, a potentially bigamous woman whose first and still valid marriage might nullify her marriage to a rich, older man, a scandal-haunted Vietnam hero, or a money-laundering businessman. Are there any 1980s headlines you can think of that the writers were ripping from for this plot? Or are those just straight out of fictional murder mystery land? Our Della for this movie is Yaphet Kotto, aka General Sorensen.
You're implying that I had something to do with Wade's death? Well, I didn't.
10 facts about our man Yaphet. Number 1, born in New York in 1939, Kotto was the son of a Cameroonian immigrant and a U.S. Army nurse. Number 2, Kotto debuted as an actor on Broadway in the role of Othello after being inspired to act by seeing Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront. Number 3, Kotto, later the lead in the Broadway production of The Great White Hope, in a role inaugurated by James Earl Jones. Number 4, Kotto goes to Hollywood in the late 1960s, and he was the first black Bond villain, facing off against Roger Moore in the 1973 movie Live and Let Die. Kotto actually plays 2 roles in the film: Harlem crime lord Mr. Big, who is the alter ego of Dr. Kananga, the leader of the fictitious Caribbean island of San Monique. Number 5, undoubtedly Kotto's most famous role, Dennis Parker in the 1979 space horror classic Alien. Things don't end well for Dennis if you haven't seen the movie. Other big movie roles for Kotto include parts in Truck Turner, blaxploitation film, Blue Collar, Midnight Run, comedy classic, Robert De Niro, Charles Grodin, and Running Man alongside Arnold. Number 6, Kotto received 1 Emmy nomination in his career for a made-for-TV movie where he portrayed dictator Idi Amin. Number 7, his most famous TV role came in the 1990s NBC drama Homicide, where he played Lieutenant Al Giardello. Number 8, Kotto might have been even more famous had he not turned down 2 prominent roles. 1, Lando Calrissian in The Empire Strikes Back, and Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, it's hard to see anyone but Billy D. Williams or Patrick Stewart in those respective roles, but think that it might have been General Sorensen. Number 9, Kotto's first wife was a German immigrant named Rita Dittmann, who he married at the age of 20. They had 3 children before divorcing in 1976. He had 3 more children with his second wife, Toni Pettyjohn, before they divorced in 1989. Kotto's third wife was from the Philippines. He stayed married to her for the last 23 years of his life. And number 10, in 2021, just last year, Kotto died in the Philippines at the age of 81. Finally, our Perry involves Perry's penchant for making his beloved Della feel appreciated. Here's how he explains all those anonymous gifts at the end of the episode.
Who?
You.
Why would I do that?
Because Tuesday was my birthday. You felt sorry for me, being here so many miles from home.
I admit nothing.
You gotta love a boss who makes you feel appreciated. The theme for this episode is the cost of truth. Harlan Wade, our titular scoundrel, only cares about money. Michelle confides in Paul Drake Jr. that she got trapped by the money Harlan offered too.
If this guy was such a lowlife, why'd you end up working for him?
Best job I could get.
Why? His condo, car, half a dozen credit cards that go along with it?
Yeah, it's part of the trap. But you know, reporters at the Informer make 3-4 times the going rate of other papers, plus all this.
But the only person Michelle's fooling is herself. No one's writing a more fictitious story than the one Michelle's writing about what she's going to do with her career if she stays with the confidential informer. No one really believes the news the confidential informer prints, and while Harlan Wade can afford a mansion, he can't afford a single friend.
Next time, let's try to get a few friends here.
Who?
While Paul and Perry and Della are on the case, Michelle finds the truth not just about who killed Wade, but about herself. The lesson she learns: truth is something you can't sacrifice for any price. Now, it's time for a Perry proverb. It appears Michael Reston has set up permanent residence in Colorado. Hamilton Burger 2.0 is talking to Perry about vacation time as though he's got an actual job or something and isn't just a wandering freelance DA. Anywho, Reston tells Perry about his upcoming vacation plans and elicits from Perry this witty piece of wisdom.
Even as we speak, I should be barreling down the Colorado on a rubber raft, white water everywhere, fast, fast, fast.
No guarantees, mind you. But you could be barreling out of this courtroom fast, fast, fast.
When will these dopey DAs ever learn? Reston wanted to face Perry in court. Let's hope he can work out his feelings of disappointment and narrowly avoided injustice during his vacay time, huh? Let's grab a swig from the water cooler.
You know, there is one thing I don't understand. Go on, Paul.
Each episode in the water cooler, we give you deleted scenes where we imagine the scenes that didn't make the movie's final cut. Here are 5 deleted scenes from the case of the Scandalous Scoundrel. Number 1, Wade digs up a story that said one client Perry once defended was actually guilty. If you think about it, that's way more scandalous than whatever Wade says Perry and Della did in a hotel, blah, blah, blah. Number 2, Della gets increasingly ridiculous gifts from an anonymous admirer that turns out not to be Perry. There's a year's worth of pickles delivered to her hotel room. She gets new tires for her car, which she doesn't own, a crate of Kleenex, and last but not least, a new washer and dryer so she can do her own laundry while she's staying for an extended period of time in Colorado. Number 3, Michelle wins the Pulitzer Prize for the work she wants to do on nursing homes in Colorado. By the way, is that a real headline? Nursing homes in Colorado were somehow shady in the 1980s? I have no clue. Number 4, all the other Colorado women Paul's been dating from these previous made-for-TV movies show up en masse outside of the courtroom to warn Michelle away from everyone's favorite Playboy detective. Don't do it, Michelle. Number 5, we get a montage of Michael Reston just falling into the Colorado River off of his rafter boat over and over again while he's getting some much needed R&R. If you've got any ideas for deleted scenes, please send them along. Let's have a few laughs, shall we? Our Paul prompt last time involved Della recommending clients to Perry, and we got answers in droves. I love it. Dennis wrote in for the first time to say on the last show, you asked about Perry taking on a client as a favor to Della. What about the case of the weary watchdog from season 6? Of course, Della was facing being charged as an accomplice. Good point. April adds, you asked if Della had ever been the impetus for Perry taking a case. What about in the case of the Blonde Bonanza or the case of the Lover's Gamble? The first was a close friend of Della's from back home. The second had someone who came to Della and got Perry to represent her. Great point, April. Nancy writes in to say, Perry had to defend Janet Brent in the case of the weary watchdog because she was Della's friend and Della was in trouble too. Not sure if that meets your criteria or not. Oh, it does, Nancy. Good job. Also, in a later movie, The Case of the Fatal Fashion, Della talks Perry into defending her friend Lauren. And then my dad jumps in to say, in The Case of the Weary Watchdog, Season 6, Episode 9, Perry defends a very close friend of Della's after a man who was blackmailing her was murdered. My dad adds, the episode has a provocative opening with Janet asking Della for $25,000, no questions allowed. And then Della asks Perry for $25,000, again, no inquiries permitted. And Perry and Della are at dinner when she asks for the money. That's over $200,000 in today's cash. And he immediately writes a $25,000 check. Perry got the coin in the bank. The look on Della's face is priceless. Thank you so much. Great stuff. Keep those Paul prompt answers coming in. Join us next time, won't you? As we see a Perry double take. First, he thinks his future client is guilty, and then he defends him. It's the 8th Perry Mason made-for-TV movie, The Case of the Avenging Ace. Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!